Hey there, I'm Ken. This is Canadian Retro Things. Welcome. It's time to look at 3 more versions of Sea Dragon. In part 1, I took a look at the Atari 8-bit, the Apple II, and the color computer version. The color computer, in my opinion, was the best of the bunch. Today, I'm looking at the C64, the TRS-80 Model 1, and the DOS versions. Which will come out on top to face the Coco version? I don't know. First, let's look at some game footage, then break down the versions. One thing I did not explain is the criteria in the first video, so here it is. The sound and graphics of the opening screen will combine for 10 points, 5 each. This is the part of the game that will draw you into wanting to play it. The next 10 points is for the graphics during play. How visually does it appear when considering the hardware limitations of the system? Do they convey well what is going on? Do things look like what they are? Then there's a score of 10 for the sound. How good is it, or is it just a distraction? There's a score of 10 for the control of the game. This includes how complicated or convenient the controls are, as well as how well the game responds. And finally, difficulty. This includes everything from how hard the game is, how much fun it is to play, and how much I want to play it again. All combined, this gives a score out of 50. Personally, some of these things don't even matter that much to me, like sound, for instance. You can always turn it off, but I'm trying to score for a well-rounded game, not just what I like. Now, on to the gameplay. The first version I'm looking at is the DOS version. This is written by Dan Rollins. In 1983, I'm playing this on DOSBox. Next, we look at the OG, the TRS-80 Model 1 by Wayne Westmoreland and Terry Gilman, released in 1982. I'm playing this on TRS-80 GP. And finally, we have the Commodore 64 version written by David H. Simmons in 1984. I'm playing this on Vice. Now, let's break down the DOS version. We'll start with the title screen, and when you first turn this on, it is a chaotic mess of random noise. I seriously think they just used a random noise generator to create this. This is painful for the ears, and I'm giving it a 1 out of 5. The graphics are very plain, and there's no indication of what this game is about. I was going to give it a 1, but I'm giving it a bonus 1 also for actually having the control instructions available on the title. So it gets a 2 out of 5 for a total of 3 out of 5 on the title screen. Now, we move on to the gameplay and the sound. Now, it does, again, have a silent background. It just is not as effective as what was going on with the Apple II, and I think this is mostly because it has a much brighter screen. It just kind of goes in contrast with the bright, colorful screen and the silence. The torpedo firing sound, there's no sense of it being underwater, and the explosions, they just sound strange. It sounds like it would be more fitting for a space game. It just doesn't seem to fit with this game. So the sound gets a 3. And moving on to the graphics during the game, they are once again nice, big, chunky, colorful graphics. The kind that I basically like. It's just a little bit strange that all of the mines in this game, they kind of look like balloons floating through the air, not mines coming up through the water to try and blow you up. Now, I would just have to say that the graphics are not spectacular, but they're also not bad. So I would say maybe a 6 for this. And then there's the control. This is a very loose control game. It's very easy to control the sub. It moves around very quickly. And one of the bonuses here, it does have a super shot that blows everything up on screen, but it does cost you air. This does, however, suffer from the same problem that if you're moving at any speed other than the slowest, and a mine fires from below you or something falls down towards you, then you just can't get out of the way, because as you back off, it just stays right under you, and there's nothing you can do except use that super shot to destroy it. So the controls, basically get a middle of the road score of 5. Now, for the difficulty, this is a very hard version. Immediately, it puts you in a position that's very difficult to get through without either using your super weapon or having a pixel perfect shot. Now, sometimes to shoot things, you have to get so close to the wall, like within a pixel or two. Again, pixel perfect. You have to be that close to the wall to shoot things, and it's just way too easy to die. And then there's the gun turrets. For some reason, you have to be past them to blow them up. A direct hit on the gun turrets, which I did many times, will not destroy them. You have to be past them in their line of fire and shoot just in front of them to blow them up. So, really, this version did not inspire me to want to play it again, and the difficulty gets a 3. Now we're going to talk about the OG, the TRS-80 Model 1, starting off with the title screen. The sound that is generated is basically just a series of beeps with a constant pitch change, which is nothing too impressive unless you consider the fact that when this game was released, the Model 1 and 3 were out, neither of which actually had a speaker or sound capability. If you watch the interview that L. Curtis Boyle and myself did with Robert Kilgus, you can hear how he discovered how you could make sound on a computer with no sound capability. So it's pretty amazing that there's any sound at all, but later in the game proves that more could be done than what they did on the title screen here. So it gets a slightly above average 3. The graphics are black and white, which is a limitation of this computer, and they are about as good as you can get with this computer and this graphics mode and everything else. So it does a very good job of showing you what to expect in the game you're about to play. So it gets a 4. That means that the title screen gets a 7. And during the gameplay, there is also a bit of sound, and I would say it's okay. The shots didn't sound much like torpedoes being fired, and the explosions are okay. Everything was very middle of the road for the sound. The amazing thing happens when the game is over and it plays a nice little tune. Again, this is absolutely amazing for a computer that was not designed to have sound. The fact that it does play this little tune knocks the score for the gameplay sound up a little bit to 6.5. The graphics, again, black and white, and are probably about as good as you can do on this computer. I do have to say that the mines that are coming up into you and are at the bottom of the screen and stuff, they kind of look like Frogger frogs waiting to be released. I think the graphics are fairly well done and look fairly good for this computer, so it gets a 6. As for control, the computer does not have a joystick port, so the game is keyboard only, and this control is surprisingly good. The most awkward thing about this is that you use the arrows to control the submarine, the space bar to fire forward, and enter key to fire up. But the only reason this is awkward is because of my modern keyboard. The Model 1 and 3, like the Coco 1 and 2, had a keyboard where the left and right arrows were right above the enter key for your right hand, and the up and down arrows were on the left where your left could use them and the left thumb could hit the space bar. So I can't really deduct anything for the controls here being a little bit awkward because it really was not designed to be played with the little cluster of arrows like a modern keyboard has. So the controls get a solid 7. As for difficulty, this was a fairly hard version and it had 2 skill levels. The easier was very challenging and yet not too hard. The faster version, definitely much harder. Again, this version had the problem where if you're going fast and something falls or floats up on you, it's impossible to get out of the way due to the scrolling speed. However, This rarely happens in this version because things tend to launch well before you're directly over or under them, making the game a lot less frustrating. This is definitely one I wanted to play again and again, and hopefully I will be playing it on real hardware very soon. So yeah, it gets a 7. Now it's time to move on to the Commodore 64, and we start with the title screen. Immediately, I was very disappointed. The title screen is extremely plain. It has no indication of what you are about to play. It's just the title of the game and who made it. There is a small bonus that it does have the controls printed right on the title screen, so rather than a 1, that moves it up to a 2 for the graphics. And then there's the sound. What sound? For a computer that boasts having the SID chip, it's very disappointing that there's not even a sound effect, not to mention any music. That means that the sound for the title screen is my very first 0. That means the title screen gets a whopping 2 out of 10 on the C64. During gameplay, the sound is a little bit better. Now there's a repeating sound that I'm not sure whether it was intended as a radar sound, but I would say it sounds more like a proximity warning sound. Both would be fitting for the game, so I'm going to pretend that they did mean it to be a proximity warning, and I'm going to say, hey, good job. The torpedo sound does have a nice bit of a whoosh to it, so it does sound more like it's fired underwater, and the explosions are quite good. Again, a bit disappointing that there are no tunes played at any point, beginning, middle, or end. The sound is scoring pretty good here, but it would have been even better if it showed off the ability of the SID chip. So overall, I would say it gets a 7. Graphics on this version are very well done. Everything looks as they should. There's no guessing as to what something might be. My only complaint would be that everything is a single color, albeit each their own color. I think that it would have looked better if they perhaps on the different sprites, at least a few of them, could have used a couple of different colors, maybe some shading, maybe like a different colored center. So nothing really stands out here, and I'll give it a 6.5. Now we move on to control. I played with this with a joystick, and of course the C64 uses a single button joystick. This means to fire up, I had to hit the space bar. This is a control scheme I really do not enjoy, as I've encountered it many times on the Coco 1 and 2. I think they should have done something more like Moon Patrol or other games like that, where both guns fire at the same time. Or like the Coco version did, the top gun didn't fire every time. It only fired when there was not another upshot on the screen. Other than this, the controls were fine, and I think another fairly upper middle of the road gives it a 6.5. Now, as for the difficulty, this is a really strange one. At first, I was going to give it a very, very low score. When I played it first, it was so slow and almost too easy. My first playthrough, I actually got way further than I did on any other version I've played. But once I raised the difficulty, the game became a lot more fun. Yes, this version does have multiple difficulties. It also has the ability to start at different points in the game, so you can see the later stages easily. The ease of the low level means that this version could be a lot more fun for younger players and still challenged experienced players on the harder levels. After my first playthrough, I did not want to play this version again, but after trying the harder levels, I actually really enjoyed it, so it actually gets an 8. This is a fairly good version of the game. So you have a C64 and you want to find some modern peripherals. Diagnose problems, recap the board, or even have it recapped for you. Then why not check out Retro Rewind? They have a wide variety of things for most of your Commodore computers, including capacitor kits, diagnostic supplies, hardware, and many other things. So check out their website at www.retrorewind.ca, and you can use my discount code of CRT10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. After sending the scores off to the accounting firm of Waters, Waters & Waters to be tallied, I can tell you that the results are, in third place is the DOS version with a score of 20. In second is the C64 version with a score of 30. In first, with a score of 33.5, is the OG, the TRS-80 Model 1 version. That means that the Coco and the Model 1 version are neck and neck with scores of 34 and 33.5 respectively. So that brings up the question of which one is better? Which one of the two winners would I choose to play? Well, you know what? I'm actually going to cop out here, and I'm going to let you decide. Would you rather play the Coco version or the Model 1 version? Or would you rather play one of the other versions? I can tell you that personally, I would choose to play the Coco version, the Model 1 version, and the C64 version again. Those were all really, really fun, really good versions. Something I can pretty much guarantee is that I will probably never play the Atari version, the Apple II version, or the DOS version again. Definitely were not as fun and not as interesting and not just generally, fun. Well, there we go. I recommend playing either the Coco version, the Model 1 version, or the C64 version, and I would definitely say just don't play those other versions, because, I'm not going to. But, that's just my opinion. You could disagree with me. Maybe one of these is your favorite and you don't like the others. I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments. So I just have to say thanks for watching this video. Don't forget that a like, a subscribe, and a comment below are all things that help the channel out a lot and are greatly appreciated. But until the next time, I guess I will see you later.